Welcome to AgriLand's live stream at the Ploughing Championships. We're here for our first discussion in the tent. Over the last 8 weeks, the headlines have been dominated with the crisis in the beef sector. However, at the weekend, there was significant developments with an agreement, a beef sector reform agreement, being put on the table and being agreed to by all stakeholders. Here to discuss this with us, we have Pat Deering, Gael TD and Chairman of the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Agriculture, the IFAs, Brian Rushe, who's also running for the Deputy Presidency of the Association, and Joe Burke, Senior Livestock Manager at Borbia. Michael Fitzmaurice is also meant to join us on the panel, however he just got delayed, but he will be here later on, so please tune in for that. So first, Pat, if I can come to you just on this deal. People are still looking for the detail of it. Is it a good deal for farmers, Pat?
Yeah, well, first of all, I suppose the last 8 weeks have been a difficult time for obviously farmers in general and everybody who's been protesting. And I suppose you'd have to argue there's been a justifiable reason for the protest in the first place. You know, the beef prices have been in difficulty for the last number of months. And there was a deal, as you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that broke down. The deal at the weekend, I think the important part, first of all, of the weekend was that everybody was involved in it. All farm organisations, new and old, if I could put it as such. There was a significant improvement in the price for the bonuses, which I thought was welcome. I think the most important point was that the task force was put in place to drive that agenda forward. There needs to be a radical reform of the whole beef sector, there's no doubt about that. There needs to be more transparency in that regard. I think there needs to be more trust developed. I think the task force is one of the most crucial ways, the most important ways going forward to develop that. I think the deal needs to be given a chance. I think at this stage now, you know, farmers obviously who haven't been protesting or who have been protesting need cattle to sell now at the moment. There's obviously money wanted in a lot of farms. There's repayments being met, and there's challenges there to be met coming down the line as well. I personally believe that the biggest challenge coming down the line at the moment is Brexit, which we haven't been speaking enough about in the last number of weeks because of obviously the other issue. And after that we have climate change, which is a huge issue as well, potentially going to affect agriculture. And after that is cap reform. They're the 3 issues, in my opinion, that are going to determine the future for a lot of farmers in Ireland over the next number of years. So I would say at this stage now that, you know, give it the deal a chance. It's not perfect, it's not what everybody wanted, but I think it's a very important stepping stone.
Brian, going to yourself, the IFA were there around the table as well as the other 7 farm organisations in total. What is IFA's position on the agreement that is there at the moment, and what are you saying to your members, and what's your message to the picket lines where farmers are still protesting?
Well, this deal represents a positive first step in addressing some of the key fundamental issues that have caused this situation we're in. And IFA, along with the other organisations, are recommending it to its members and to those in the pickets. But I suppose the first step in this is a rebuilding of trust. There's a lack of transparency in the sector. After a farmer delivers his animal through the factory gates, that's it. We don't see any real transparency what happens in the supply chain after that. Whereas the farmer's proportion of the supply chain from birth to slaughter is 100% transparent, completely transparent in everything we do. And that transparency from slaughter, from factory gate to end use consumer has to be addressed. So we need to see entire supply chain transparency. And only when we see that will we see trust. Or only when we see steps towards that will we see a beginning of rebuilding the trust.
Joe, just to bring you in, I suppose, on the detail that's there in the agreement, there are significant changes that have been put forward on the spec requirements. Can you just explain what those changes are and how they would impact on every farmer?
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, it's certainly fair to say that there are some changes. So in addition to the beef market task force, which is going to bring about better transparency, better understanding of market situations and conditions as well too, by producers and right across the supply chain. But obviously, you know, what a lot of producers are going to be focused on is what is this going to mean in terms of a financial impact on farmers that are going to be slaughtering cattle hopefully over the coming weeks and months. And there is a very definite benefit there in terms of, first of all, a higher proportion of animals which are actually going to be receiving bonuses. It would have been one of maybe the bones of contention of certain farmers that when we actually analysed the data, 50% of the steers and heifers that were being slaughtered up until now were in receipt of the in-spec bonus, so under 30 months, quality assured, and also meeting the other criteria for the bonus as well. This new agreement means that now over 70% of steers and heifers slaughtered are going to get a bonus. First of all, there is the in-spec bonus, which previously existed. That has been expanded to 20 cents a kilo. So it's increased by 66%, 20 cents a kilo bonus. There have been the other two new bonuses. So these are, if you like, new incentives there, new benefits which are going to be experienced by farmers slaughtering cattle. There'll be the 12 cents a kilo for O- and 4+, I suppose, subgrades. And there'll be 8 cents a kilo for animals that are over 30 months, so between 30 and 36 months, but still satisfying the quality assurance and the other in-spec criteria. So overall, the benefit of this, you can see it there. For certain animals, it's an additional 30 to 40 euros per animal. It's an extra 8 cents that they weren't previously getting. For the O- and 4+ animals, it's up to 40 and 50 euro per animal, because that's 12 cents a kilo. When we added it up there on the additional animals and the higher bonuses as well too being paid, based on the 2018 numbers and slaughter figures, this represents an additional 23 million or even more than that in terms of the extra value of this payment over the round of the year. So it is significant, and I think it's one that certainly bears very, very strong consideration by all of the different parties involved in order to properly understand it and to be able to articulate those benefits then back to the farmers.
And I suppose, Joe, an issue that is there at the moment as well is that there's a lot of farmers that are looking to get cattle killed right now. Do you have any figures on that backlog, on that volume that's there at the minute?
So yeah, that is fair to say. Obviously, the impact of the protests or of the activity over the last 8 weeks, it has been quite considerable, particularly over the most recent period. Our estimates would suggest that so far over that 8-week period, we've slaughtered about 70,000 less cattle than we had in that same period last year. So that does represent a little bit of a build-up. Obviously, on the other hand, at market level, our customers are being let down. They're not being able to get the product. So that's obviously the crux of the matter, or the impasse that we're in at the moment. Now, that's not to say that there's that full backlog, because it would have been expected that maybe cattle numbers might have tightened up a bit by now anyway, based on the high kill earlier on in the year. But it would be certainly fair to say, Claire, that there are additional numbers of cattle. It's maybe not that full 70, but there are probably 40, 50, something in that region, 1,000 additional animals, just that I suppose are anticipating slaughter and hopefully we'll get going and we'll see a rebalancing of the market then after that.
Brian, just I suppose another big element of this whole story and how it has developed is it has really shown, I suppose, a fracturing of farm politics in the initial stages. 7 organisations taken part in the talks, yet the 7 accepted the agreement at the weekend. What is happening on the ground now in terms of getting, talking to your members, all the farm organisations, talking to members about the detail of this agreement, and how do you progress it as one unit?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I suppose it was very positive to see that all farm organisations came out of that meeting recommending the document. That was very positive. With ourselves, with my own job as Kildare chairman, as admitted, we would communicate with our own members on the ground immediately what was on the table in terms of that deal, what was there, and in constant contact, highlighting the deal, why we're recommending it, and also as well telling this is just the beginning. This is a positive first step, but it's only a first step, Claire. The thing that brought the lack of trust now between farmers on the ground and the processing sector in particular cannot be underestimated, and it's built on about 15 or 16 months of what I feel farmers getting badly treated, getting let down, and not being treated right and fairly by the processing sector, and that's what built up here. But it's absolutely vital now for farm organisations to come together, get this report, this document, and drive it on. and we'll be driving it on at IFA, and I'll make sure we'll be driving it on as well, because it's a first step. There's a lot in this to like. There's not everything in it we wanted. There's a lot in it that we like. But in terms of looking for that transparency piece, like, you know, beef market task force, seeing where that money is going, right? Like, you know, farmers need to know where the transparency is. In all our other sectors, there's a serious level of transparency, and that allows farmers to plan, allows farmers to invest, and allows farmers look beyond 10, 15 years in the future. They can safe in the knowledge they're going to have the knowledge. Beef farmers deserve the same. They absolutely deserve the same. And I think the era of secrets and, let's say, you know, lack of transparency in that sector is over, I think, now.
Pat, finally, although everybody has agreed this, accepted this a deal that's been put on the table, there is a fear now that, you know, it may not come to fruition. It may not progress because there are still protests on the gates. The Meat Industry Ireland have said unless the blockades and all that come down, they won't lift the legal actions, and the deal could potentially fall. How concerned is government on that? Because this has been dominating government discussions for the last 2 months. Yeah,
absolutely. It has dominated the whole summer, I suppose you could say. Since the end of July, it has been their main issue, not in farmers sector, but in national circles. I would sincerely hope that those who are on the picket line would have a decent look at the proposals. I would hope that those who agree to it, the 7 organisations, would totally agree with Brian on that point. I think it was the most important thing over the weekend was the fact that it was a unified voice in that regard, making the final decision. I would hope that those people now who made that decision and agreed that document would bring that back and discuss it in detail with those who are under protests at the moment. And I do think there is a lot in it that's worth considering. Obviously not at all in it that you could be happy about, but I think it's a very, very important first step. The task force going forward, in my opinion, is the key driver, or will be the key driver of transparency. And Brian is 100% right. There's a huge confidence issue and a trust issue that has broken down and will take a while to repair. But not just that didn't happen in the last 15 months. In my opinion, it's gone on for a number of years, and it hasn't been addressed up to now. I think we have a golden opportunity now to address that once and for all, so there can be a trust built up that everybody can buy into over the next period of time. But I would hope that the document would be discussed in detail and everybody would have a fair opportunity to see the benefits of it.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you all very much for joining us, and thanks to everybody for coming into the tent. That's it for this panel discussion. There's lots more coming up.